Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to share with you the start of my journey towards financial freedom, my real story of becoming a multi-millionaire. It took every ounce of hard work and skill combined with taking advantage of all the lucky moments and gifts. I want you to know my story because then you'll know me and you'll know the actual messy process of success. It's not a straight line, and even when you're hustling, I want you to feel confident because we all go through a similar struggle when we start out. A few months before graduating from college, I started the search for the next chapter of my life. I was 23 and I had focused solely on pole vaulting for the previous 8 years. But now it was time to stop and take the next step. I had majored in sociology because it let me focus and dedicate myself to my sport, but it wasn't my calling. I'd always been competitive and knew I'd end up in business one way or the other. I even have early memories of telling my mom I'd be a billionaire one day. I just didn't know what it really meant to be in business. With college behind me, it was time to take the plunge, and I asked everyone I knew where I should start. I found out I could make $300,000 to $500,000 a year after 4 to 5 years as a commercial real estate agent. That the top agents were making $1 million to $4 million a year after 20 to 30 years of work. It didn't seem like enough to me, considering I wanted billions. But it seemed like real estate would be a good starting place to learn the ins and outs of business and make a lot of money. But honestly, I didn't even know what it truly meant to do real estate. I was about to find out. I began my first job at Marcus & Millichap in West Los Angeles. It was big, a 70-plus offices nationwide commercial real estate firm that had a reputation for intensity, but also good training. It wasn't too challenging getting the job, mainly because they don't pay anything. That's the catch. And they tell you that at the beginning when interviewing, but it doesn't really sink in what that means. They say it can take 6 months to a year to get a paycheck. The truth is that it can take a lot longer, and they don't mention all the expenses. Just to become a licensed real estate agent takes 4 months and costs $1,500. The different websites that you have to have membership to cost another $2,000. Adequate clothes, computers, marketing materials can vary based on what you need and how much you want to spend. My assigned mentor at M&M was a successful agent who was making $1 million a year. So the deal was this. Marcus Millichap provides office space, training, their reputation, certain software, and some basic paper supplies. In return, they take 50% of the commission, and my mentor would take 50% of the remaining 50% until I did 3 deals. A sneaky side note is that it could actually be more than 3 deals if he helped out on any of the other previous leads. Those would carry on past the 3 commissions that I already split with him. And what is a commission exactly? It's a fee from selling a property for an owner or helping a buyer purchase a property. You typically get a percentage of the purchase price, between 2 and 6%. This was one of my first lessons in how people can take advantage of you. Not that I had a choice in signing this contract, it was either sign it or don't work at this company. So I dove into this tricky business and was extremely excited to try and take over the world. It wouldn't quite happen as I expected. I spent the first 2 months just trying to understand the process of being an agent. First, I had to pick a product type, which means I had to choose what type of real estate I'd specialize in. Office buildings or apartment buildings, industrial, self-storage, retail, hotels, vacant land, small buildings, big buildings. Then I had to choose a specific area to focus in. It's really important to be within 20-minute drive of where you work. You need to be able to commute quickly because you'll be going back and forth a lot, and time driving is time you're not focused on your business. Ultimately, I chose apartment buildings with between 5 and 25 units in West Los Angeles, Brentwood, Palms, and Mar Vista. You have to choose between these property types and locations because in this business, it's important to specialize. If you pick more than one product type or area, you'll spread yourself too thin. Approximately 2,000 to 3,000 property owners is the sweet spot. This would be the customer base that I would reach out to. You need a wide reach, but you also need to be able to follow up and keep track of all your contacts. How would I reach them? Well, at the beginning, cold calling. That's right, I'd call all these people over the next few years every single day. 50 to 60 calls a day on average. The goal was to call them and convince them to sell their property and use me as their agent. Or potentially they'd want to buy more buildings and I could represent them for that too. 95% of the owners that picked up the phone told me to piss off. I remember every morning just having knots in my stomach. I was so nervous. What an experience that was. It was so brutal, but an unbelievable learning experience, a practical education on wheeling and dealing. You have to develop a thick skin, but you also learn how to talk to people with confidence. It was tough, but it's how I became a salesman. Simultaneously, while preparing to start cold calling, which was nerve-wracking to say the least, I had to learn the commercial real estate agent business. I had to become a master so that these owners would trust me. I observed other agents carefully and tried to learn from watching. In this business, it's very hard to get all the information you need from one source. I read books, online manuals, watched YouTube, talked to coworkers, listened to the experts, and took UCLA Extension night classes. Well, I went to UCLA Extension classes. I never actually enrolled. 4 to 5 nights a week, 3 hours every single night from 6 to 9 p.m. I went to UCLA, I sat in the front row, I asked all the questions. Sometimes I even walked one of the professors to the car so that I could ask further follow-up questions. One of the things I was determined to understand was what the property owner's goals and motivations were. I did my best to understand why they own these investment properties. And as I studied what their investment strategies were, I began to become more knowledgeable and thus more persuasive. This was the first 5 months. At the time, I was living with my mom in West LA, saving on rent and food and mainly just focusing on learning this craft. I explained to my parents that I needed help until I could get going, and thankfully they understood. That's just one of the ways I was extremely fortunate. I was born to a family that was capable and willing to help. And I have to acknowledge being a white male gave me advantages in business and in life. I also was lucky to be native to an area with a strong real estate market. From 5 months to the year mark, I was cold calling a lot. That was my only real way to get a client because I didn't have any money to send out postcards or advertise. So I had to cold call and hope to catch a lucky break with an owner that would sell with a new guy in the business, a 23-year-old with no experience. It was a challenge. 12 months passed and I had nothing to show for my efforts. It was very difficult, but I was determined to land a listing and sell someone's property. I met with nearly 50 property owners in the first 12 months. I did proposals for them on their buildings and showed them a valuation, which is the price I thought I could get for them and how I would get it. That proposal also showed how I would expose their property to the most amount of people and be proactive in searching for a buyer. But nobody would commit to selling with me. I followed up frequently with everyone. No bites. It was so challenging and difficult. I thought I would have a few $100,000 in commission by now. Nope, nothing. Not only that, I was miserable cold calling all day and getting rejected non-stop. Until finally, at month 13, I landed a listing. I cold called an extremely aggressive, no-nonsense man that seemed to appreciate my hustle and bustle. He invited me to meet with him. I probably met with him 3 times before he actually committed to signing a listing agreement contract with me. Frankly, it was more of a pity listing. I just kept calling and calling him, almost begging for him to sell with me as his agent, which I don't recommend. You want to show confidence. Eventually, though, he relented, and I had a $3 million first listing with a 5% commission. Of course, I had to sell it first. At the beginning, probably 50% of listings don't sell. Over the next 11 months, I struggled to sell the property. We had to go through multiple price reductions. The owner was pissed off. I was constantly being told that he regretted ever signing the listing agreement. Eventually, we were at 2.9 million and were getting offers. We went under contract 4 times, meaning that the buyer and sellers agreed on the purchase. However, 3 times in a row, buyers pulled out at the last minute. I was so desperate. I had 1 buyer left. The owner told me if this one fell through, he'd be done trying to sell the property with me. Thankfully, it somehow made it to the finish line at my 24 months mark in the business. $2,835,000 was the final price. I had to reduce my commission to make the seller and buyer happy, but it was done. I had an achievement and some money. My commission was close to $150,000. Hold on, not so fast. Of that 5% commission, half of that goes to the agent that represents the buyer of the property. At least it was 2.5%. $75,000. Not quite. I had to split that with Marcus and Millichap. So I was down to $37,500. Not too bad. Oh wait, I had to split that with my mentor. Down to $18,750. So after it was all said and done, 13 grand. Because I had to give 5,000 back to the seller. Effectively, I had just made $13,000 over 2 years. Something had to change. I was so frustrated. I couldn't keep doing this. But then, I discovered a solution. Thanks for watching. This story is going to continue in another video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, remember, the best ROI is you.